Hello, welcome to theCUBE pod. I'm John Furrier, normally with Dave Vellante, but Dave's on vacation. We missed last week's pod, but we're not going to miss it this week. We had some folks hanging around the studio. You know, the old expression, hanging around the barbershop, you get a haircut. Well, we got a great guest here, Elliott Donnelley. Welcome to theCUBE pod, sitting in for Dave Vellante. Salute to you.
Salute
Elliott.
to you, and
All
salute
right.
to Dave.
Dave's going to love this pod. Dave, we wish you were here. Have a great vacation. Dave's out on vacation this week. Elliott's going to fill in. He's in studio. We had a great crypto Trailblazer Summit. We had an amazing Human X event. I hosted a bunch of panels. Brian Bauman, founder of NYC Wired, was there. Elliott, you came by. Great to see you. We're talking strategy, helping see Brian, and just doing business. And great to see you in Palo Alto.
Oh, it's great to be here. It's great to be here.
And you're also in the news because you're on SiliconANGLE.com today. There's an article out there from our interview that you did as the first time on theCUBE at Forward Global. We were the chairman of the board, innovative impact investing organization on trust networks, where we talked about it. So you're headlining on SiliconANGLE right now on a really great article, getting a lot of traffic actually on the new trust network. So today's a great SiliconANGLE CUBE day.
It's a great day to be here.
The universe is making it happen, as we say. Great to have you. Well, first of all, let's just get into some of the things. You saw some of the crypto content here on our day 2 of our 2-day digital event. You know, I find, and I'm really glad you're here because you can talk about this, because I've been seeing this trend, and after coming back to your event at Forward Global, it's now so clear to me, and it's as clear as day, that we are at a nexus of tech, money, and impact. And I use that word loosely because maybe it's not the right definition, but philanthropy and all the money that's for social good and the institutions that do that, they're too slow and things have to go faster. So, and like blockchain changes the old way, cloud changes the old way. The new way is money, tech, and impact of life, all happening in one shot. It's the tip of the one spear. And you're starting to see impact in integrating into things like software, AI for good, or quite frankly, just people's missions.
Yeah.
And they don't have to be a separate siloed initiative. This is something that's really a big deal, in my opinion.
No, it's a huge deal. And I think more and more, I mean, again, thank you so much for coming to the Forward Global Summit last week in LA and for actually being there to tell the stories, I think, that need to be told. I think that's one of the things I appreciate deeply about theCUBE, about you, about Dave, is that you have a knack for understanding where the world's moving, and you get there before others. Yeah. So I think this is a fascinating time to be alive. It's really exciting to be in Silicon Valley at this time, to be focused on the world of finance, institutional investment, how capital moves, but also not just financial capital, how philanthropic capital moves, and other forms of capital. I think one of the things we were talking about before was kind of the speed of trust and how you build trust networks. I think when you look at crypto, you look at kind of the networks in the world that kind of make things happen. Creating very powerful networks is a key part, and again, Silicon Valley has been based on that. You reported that in sort of the 2000s when you start to, and then in the 1990s, the dot-com boom. Like, networks are key, and so I think we're seeing that more and more, and we're seeing that in everything that we do and are a part of. Yeah,
and I think the news that you see these days points to that. If Dave was here, we'd probably be talking about Intel getting a new CEO, Lip-Bu Tan, who's now taken over Intel. And Intel is a classic, some cautionary tale, but they're a legacy brand. They are the face of Silicon Valley. I think obviously Hewlett-Packard's like the inventor of Silicon Valley, in my opinion. They were the garage in Palo Alto, but Intel, the semiconductors, Silicon Valley. Okay, and Intel, there's a new CEO, is going to try to turn that around, but there's a whole foundry spin out going on. Do we do that? How does Intel get back in? How do they become relevant? So you have the old guard trying to be the new guard, and that's a shift for their mindset. TSMC, others, Broadcom's in the mix. So there's a reconstruction going on in the industry. Agentic AI, we came back from the Human X conference. Brian Bauman was there with me, and it wasn't just typical conversation we love to go to, which is, agents and agentic and data layers. There was a human aspect to it in the sense that mainstream media was there. Fox Business was there, Bloomberg was there, of course, as I have theCUBE, moderating panels. But now you have the confluence and intersection of those worlds coming together. I saw Google there, and they're in the news. And so all kinds of things are happening. AI and data, agentic is already here. Amazon's trying, so you have a merging, to piggyback off the trust networks, you have worlds coming together. And I know that you and I both talked about intuition, but there's serendipity happening, there's propensity. It's not a fixed paradigm. Things aren't like as good as math, and although math's involved in machine learning, there's going to be a lot of unknowns, Elliott. And I know that you think about this a lot. I know I do. When you have things coming together, Intel's trying to be relevant, NVIDIA's now the top dog. Data is super important. AI has to have a human element. Social and change is happening at the same time. Things are changing. There's a reconstruction, and there's always opportunities for entrepreneurs, for new winners to emerge, and existing winners to maybe stay winners. And of course, there's always going to be people who fail. So it's a really human time in an era where everyone's talking about how AI is going to kill the human. You know, so it's like, I just find in my mind, just like, when I riff about this, it's like, okay, AI for good, that's a huge narrative we've been investing a lot in, talking a lot today about, you and I privately, but the humans are involved, and all the industries are changing, the business model transformation, the technology platform. So I just find it one of the most exciting times, and you could be a little bit nervous on one side, but it's super exciting. I mean, I am just thrilled and energized by this. I mean, what's your take on all that? I mean, it's the mind's involved, you got technology, things you care about. What's your?
Yeah, no, listen, I mean, I think we're at this incredible time where things are accelerating, but I think we also have to take, like, if you take the long view and kind of the arc of history and kind of where we are today, and I have the privilege of being able to look back to look forward. Yeah. One of the things I'm blessed about is there is a multi-generational family legacy that I'm the beneficiary of, and it's not so much kind of the financial capital or philanthropic capital, but it's kind of I think the capital, the values that you get, and also kind of the perspective. And I was I was a history major in college as well. So I think one of the things that you start to see, I mean, when I go back 5 generations, my great-great-grandfather, he came to the U.S. from Canada. He was an Irish immigrant into Canada. His family had been Irish immigrants. He was first-generation Canadian at that time, and he kind of fell in love with one of the local girls and eloped with her because the father didn't think that he would make much of himself. But he came at a time where kind of one of the greatest technologies at that moment was the printing press. Mm-hmm. And, you know, starting with Gutenberg, this was a revolution in terms of how humans distributed information, how they built their concepts around the world, how it empowered things like democracy, power rules of law. But it was also, an incredible moment where, our family, when they came in from Canada into Chicago during the height of the Civil War, they led with their values, they led with community, they built their own trusted networks, and I think their values led. And one of the core values was making sure that every member of the community was taken care of, every employee was taken care of, and all of their customers as well as their investors. But they also thought that innovation was important. And so they always invest in the latest technology, and they came up with a concept which is radical at the time, which is with the advent of the telephone, they created the first telephone directory, Yellow Pages. If you think about it, at that time, that was the Google of its era. No, right? Really? They also were empowering what at that time was the Amazon of its era, which was the Sears and Roebuck catalog. The Sears and Roebuck catalog, through printing and through distribution, was able to get to any part of the U.S., any small
So your grandfather built the first Yellow Pages.
That's right. My great-great-grandfather did.
Great-great-grandfather.
Yes, and so that family, they came up with that concept.
Oh, it was
1864, 1870s into the 1900s, and the family actually ended up creating 5 publicly listed companies in the New York Stock Exchange. So it's kind of this amazing history, but one of them was this commitment to innovation. Yeah. So I think that when you take that long view of history, you start to see.
And of course, self-made entrepreneur at that time, yes, which was necessity, was survival.
It was survival, but it was also beyond survival. It was kind of this larger sense. I mean, probably, frankly, I don't know if this is true, but the family lore is that he had to prove to his father-in-law that he is worthy of basically, being the husband to
the breadwinner.
Yes.
He did better than that, huh?
Yeah, but he did very well, and I think there was the company for many generations was very focused on those values. Yeah. Lead with your values, take care of your employees, take care of the community, be straight up front, pay your debts, basic things, but also strong commitment to innovation.
So your family history really rode these shifts.
They rode these shifts, and I kind of what's been amazing for me, and we'll get now to the arc of history where we are today, is I have that perspective.
Yeah.
And my father and mother, they met in Washington, D.C. They came out to California. My father fought in Vietnam. He was going to go back to work for the family business. And I think really it was my mother who convinced him to stay. And after hearing her out, he said, listen, it's probably going to be better for my children to be away from the epicenter of where the family wealth was created, where you're seen as a fifth generation member of the Donnelley family, versus coming up to Berkeley, California in 1969. Blending in. And I think the big gift for me is I had no idea really about that family legacy, and I was given the gift of being brought up with a first generation mentality in an area of the world that was undergoing profound changes and shifts and ideas and what it means, and also it was the birthplace of technology, sort of the technological revolution, the next technological revolution that we've seen that's really come out of Silicon Valley. Yeah,
that's what I love about Cal, Berkeley, is that they're always disrupting. And if you look at today's market, I mean, again, I love the tie into the family history, because as the reconstruction of new mediums come out, which is now blockchain, we heard this week, like I said, Intel's got a new CEO. Acquisitions are happening, seeing consolidation, which is another trend in the market. ServiceNow bought MoveWorks for $2.9 billion. And then companies are raising a lot of money. So people see this next printing press, or whatever you want to call it. Something's happening. Bill Tai would say, again, this is such a big thing. You can move the big rock now with technology that's stuck in the road. It's here. I mean,
it's here. And so I think kind of what I feel is I have that benefit of looking back, the benefit of having a fresh start, looking forward, and kind of what all that informs me is like I'm here right now. I've co-founded with Dr. Ashby Monk a new venture capital fund that's focusing on the future of investing. But I also have weaved throughout my life this core, I think, legacy of family to values and to thinking beyond personal benefit, thinking about what is our responsibility for our community, what is our responsibility for our country, what is our responsibility for the world, and what is our responsibility for our species. And I think as chair of Forward Global, this came out very much in terms of what we were trying to talk about last week in terms of building networks of trust, and also how you start to understand systems that are not necessarily about personal, corporate, like individual benefit, but how do you start to think about what are the values that are created when you start to think about species level benefit or collective benefit? And I think it's important as we sit here in systems of disruption that we understand what's the engine that's driving them. And sometimes, capitalism can be a beautiful thing, but it's an objective function, right? It's a very clear objective function. And this is this concept of money. It can relate to disparate objects, but now it has this abstract concept that relates them. And that small invention, that idea, and now through the use of capital has propelled this incredible growth as in technology and in the benefits that we see in the physical world around us. But I think at the same time, if you're not fully cognizant of how that propels things, you also start to have unintended consequences. And so I think I'm really interested in this place where technology is growing so quickly, that you start to see this big dispersion of outcomes. For each unit of time, the outcomes widen. If you're at a period of time where there's not technological innovation, there's not technological growth, you could see the next 100 years being 3% different, 5% different. The dispersion of outcomes are minimal. But now in this world of kind of hyper growth, when each term of the doubling cube, each unit of time, we expand to a world where on one side, one dispersion of outcome is species extinction. On the other side is radical evolution of our species. And so when we're in a time like this, and you mentioned all the current news that we're seeing, and things that are continuing accelerating with sort of next generation models and AI, it has this profound benefit for us as a species, but it has these profound risks. So I think as we start to understand,
and by the way, the time factors are huge. So normally, like if you go back to say Moore's law and Intel, it doubles, in speed. That also had a lagging software market. Now the speed is so fast, people are worried about the runaway train or AI manipulation. So there's a whole narrative that's happening now. We're starting to see people talking about it, people in our network saying, where's the companion narratives around the optimism? Where's the count, not to be just a polarized thing, but just to say there's alternatives. Are we aware of what we don't know? Or is there anyone thinking about what is AI manipulation, which you guys brought up at Forward Global? But also, there's also a good coming out of all this, right? A big time.
There is.
Money making, check. You're in the business of making money with your venture firm, but also you can actually have to think about the citizens involved, the society.
Yes.
Huge,
Yeah.
huge point.
Well, and I think in these moments of profound disruption, right, and profound acceleration, I think it's important that we also ground ourselves in our moral compass, the best traits of humankind, and I think kind of what's exciting about this now is that, and I think we were also talking about the power of intuition last time, right? So as you see these acceleration, like, you know, how long did it take to get to 1 million customers? This is one of these benchmarks, and with ChatGPT, it's, you know, it's been the fastest in almost of all time.
I got to ask you because, first of all, I love what you're doing with Forward Global. I think that's the most innovative thing I've seen because of what they're thinking about speed, impact. I love the philosophy. I think it's going to be a revolution there. But you also, on KDX, you actually make investments. You're a venture capitalist. So you're there to make money. You want to, and you got hundreds of investments, but you're focusing on investing, which is money. And we heard in blockchain, DeFi, decentralized finance, is huge. We're seeing new paradigms. You see Falcon X out there. You see Kraken. They might even go public on the NYSE, as it turns out. They're ready to go public now. If they went public now, they'd be $20 billion valuation with their revenues. I mean, they're going great. But it's crypto. Like, oh, crypto. So there's a little bit of fear. And then, so that's kind of going on there. On the other wave, you got the VC model, the classic Silicon Valley VC model being disrupted. Now they're kind of moving more later stage, but the seed rounds are done by previous founders, solo general partners. So on the formation side, or groups like Stanford Builders, you're starting to see the entry. We got the Y Combinator. So VC's changing. So the velocity is so fast. How is the money side of the equation? So take that, like, let's talk about that. Like, where's the value add, or is it going to come from somewhere else? Or how fast can you invest? How fast can you do due diligence? What's your take on the VC model right now? I mean, how are you doing your deals?
Yeah.
Is it
well, so I think it's interesting.
based?
I don't know if this is true, but I think when Ashby and I have kind of looked at the marketplace, I think we're the only VC firm that's focused on the future of investment technology.
Like making trades or investing in stuff?
It's any technology that will help investors do a better job, understand risk better. How do they manage, do they do process automation? How do they understand how to create new marketplaces, new asset classes they can invest in? So all the technology that enables that. And I think what's exciting about being grounded there, I mean, Ashby Monk is one of the top institutional thought leaders in institutional investing. And he's written 8 books, 100 papers. His life has been dedicated first at Oxford, now runs a research center at Stanford. But one of his observations, and one of our collective's observations, is that, like, if you want to create an impact on the world, go to where the $140 trillion of assets lay. And these are in the pension funds, these are in the sovereign wealth funds. And he spent a lot of his time focusing on how governance could change those institutions. And one of his deep insights is that technology is the way to kind of open the floodgates. You can empower, these institutions are quasi-governmental, you know, non-traditional business entities, and these actors can have the profound influence on the future of kind of our economies, the future of our governments, the future of our planet.
He's the executive director of the Stanford Research Initiative.
Long-term investment.
On long-term investing.
That's correct.
He's also a research engineer at School of Engineering at Stanford. Not too bad. I mean, I heard of Stanford. It's hard to get into. They hire smart people over there.
Yeah.
We put my Stanford pin on right here.
Yeah.
I love Stanford. Well, my daughter went to Cal, so I'm a Cal dad. So I love both. He's living in Palo Alto. I want to ask you about this long game. Theme comes up a lot now in theCUBE, no matter what event I'm going to. Forward Global last week, here it's crypto, Trailblazers, HumanX on the beginning of the week. Almost every event you're hearing, we're playing the long game, long-term thinking. I'm keying in on that. What's your vision on that? Because you talked to the Dr. Ashby Monk, who's doing long-term investing. He wrote the book on the technological investor, so it's like he's a thinker. How do you think about long-term? Obviously, long-term investing is your thesis. So that's platforms, or is it, what is the long game? How would you, because we're in a long game. If you get something right, you got to think durability.
Yeah, so I think there's two forces at work. One is so much of our markets are short-term thinking, right? So much of our markets are basically grounded on how you take this $140 trillion and you have a series of intermediaries that will then create values, goods and services, other forms of investment intermediaries. But I think there's two things that are happening. One is if you can take that capital and give the power to those institutional investors through technology, and you can give them the power to drive new insights, to actually disintermediate middlemen. So I think in a way, strangely enough, if we're successful as a venture capital firm, the field of venture capital will go away, right? And I think what's really exciting about that is that, like, this is what's happening with when you're looking at an exponential growth, you both benefit from looking for the long term, but then you're very confounded in how do you interpret that. But if you, from an investor's perspective, if you can move away from sort of short-term thinking into long-term thinking, you can then take long bets. And when we look at climate change, we look at other global problems that are that are hard to be solved immediately. You now have the ability to kind of look through the long term, invest for the long term, and make the investments that are necessary to create the infrastructure that we need. So that's one thing that's happening in the physical world. I think with the exponential growth of technology and AI, things are moving very quickly. So you have to rethink about what the future is going to look like. And when you look at even investment capital, there's a possibility, as things progress, that even capitalism itself may change. Right? So really, I think it's...
The efficiencies are coming.
Yes.
We're hearing that too. Like blockchain said, hey, universal basic income actually works if it's efficient, the money's still coming in. Right? It's like, okay, so...
Yes, well, and what's going to happen to our economies? I mean, I think there's some very profound questions if you really think deeply about what it means for the exponential growth in technology. And at the same time, it's important when you're thinking about investment to be thinking for the long term. So it's kind of this, we're in this strange world of like the benefits of thinking about long-term investment, but also kind of the reality of where we are today. And I think that goes back to some of the other questions. It's like when we start to think about investment technology, these are proxies for how we take these large pools of capital and how we allocate them in ways which create greater efficiencies. And in the end, what the hope for is going to be benefiting humankind. And so I think this is where also blended finance comes in and where philanthropy plays a role.
Talk about blended finance. This is something that you've been innovating on for over a decade.
Yes.
And this is something that's happening. We're seeing these capital structures, OpenAI, Anthropic, where they're doing cool things. We're looking at it here, but it's not. Explain what blended finance means and what's the upside to this.
Yeah,
or is
well, if you think
Pollyanna, hey, we're doing some cool things. And I'm not saying you're going to say that, but some people might say that.
No, I think, well, there's an opportunity to do a lot of cool things. I mean, I think part of the problem is that in the past, as we've talked about last time, we as humans tend to create silos and exist in silos. We have a hard time looking across silos. There's huge opportunities that are basically, that exist by going across silos, by disrupting the way that we think and the way that we've structured our lives and our worlds. One of the things that I think is really interesting within blended finance, in the past, people thought, okay, finance was over here, philanthropy was over here, and never the twain shall meet, right? They're totally different systems. One is dispensing, quote, grant capital to actually support nonprofits. But if you actually think about philanthropic capital more broadly, this is capital. What is the objective of philanthropic capital? Really, the objective of philanthropic capital is to try to maximize an impact return. Maximize impact IRR, or identify which are the highest impact NPV projects that you can invest in using a financial term, net present value. And you should have a methodology for allocating capital so that it's being put to its highest and best use in service of humanity and the world, right? And so when you think about philanthropical capital that way, it's basically just another form of capital, but with another form of financial capital, but just being driven by a different objective function. So when you have that and you have your financial capital, which traditionally has been sort of thought of in many ways as kind of maximization of shareholder value, you're trying to drive financial return. So if you take these two pools of capital, you can have, what becomes really interesting is you can have complementary but opposite objective functions. So over here, you're trying to maximize financial return, and if you have a set of values, you're also, while you're doing that, trying to capture as much impact as you can. And on this other side, really what should be happening is these foundations should be fully deployed completely freely to maximize impact return or impact IRR.
Be a hedge fund if you can be. Why not?
Well, and secondarily, capture as much financial value as you can, because the more financial value you capture as a impact fund, the more money you can have on this side of the equation to drive positive outcomes for mankind and womankind.
Elliott, it's great to have you on as a guest host and partner on this pod. Dave's on vacation with his wife, Deb. So Dave, I hope you get to download this podcast, get to listen to it. We miss you. Watch out, the Lou Gehrig story. Be careful, Elliott could be permanent host. You'll laugh on that one. Elliott, thanks for sharing your family story. R&R Donnelley actually had, I was reading a little quick thing here. They had a fire in the early days.
1871.
1871.
It was the big Chicago fire. I mean, we talk about the fires in LA. 1871 was probably one of the most catastrophic fires in U.S. history at that time. And I think one of the things that, I mean,
makes or breaks you, the adversity.
Well, and I think one of the things I can look back with pride is that after the Chicago fire, it was so disastrous for the economy there. Basically, the government said all debts are forgiven. And I think there were only 2 companies, at least this is what I've been told, that repaid their debts in full. And that was kind of the values. R.R. Donnelley was one of those companies.
Yeah.
And my great-great-grandfather had a very strong value. It's like, if you incur debts, you pay them off.
I had no idea of the deep family story there. Thanks for sharing here on theCUBE pod. Appreciate it. And I love the perspective. I love the long game. I love this idea because new models are emerging. It is a time where new mediums are here, like the printing press, all those stories. It's happening now.
It's happening now. And I think one thing before we leave, I think it's really important to let you know is that I wear many hats and I move through the world in many different ways. But one of the things, this is a time where many people can feel disheartened by where the world is going. Whether that if you feel people are threatened by the rise of China, people are threatened by what's happening in Russia and the Ukraine war, whatever side of the political spectrum you are, you can feel there's a lot of outrage and a lot of fear at this moment. Yeah. I want to tell you that one of the things I'm seeing, and it's kind of, this goes back to intuition and beyond the thinking mind. Yeah. There are some of the most amazing human beings that I've had the fortune of meeting in the last 2 or 3 years. A lot of them are incredible women founders. They're women who are in great companies doing great things, and they have a different orientation. Even with the Gen Zs that we're seeing, I'm finding a different narrative that's emerging in Silicon Valley and all around the world. And that narrative is I think a narrative of hope. It's a narrative of possibility. It's a narrative of kind of higher sense of compassion, and if you want to use the word love, in an era where we're predisposed to fear. When we look at these devices, a lot of times the news that we see is news that is negative, is news that makes us afraid, that the world is not safe, that we're not safe, that things are changing and that we're out of control, that the AI is going to be taking off in these incredible ways which we don't understand. The counter narrative that's happening that's not being caught in the news, which I think I'm so happy that you have me on and that we're having this discussion.
And we're investing in too.
Is this incredible narrative of hope, this incredible narrative of possibility, this incredible narrative of people kind of strangely, in a strange way, almost waking up to this commitment to, I think, almost what I would call a compact for humanity. And what that compact is people are no longer thinking about where their schools, their states, whatever tribal, or sort of, nation state affiliations, people are now thinking at a global level, they're thinking at a species level, and they're acting in ways which I can't explain it. It's kind of very weird, very strange, but it's incredibly hopeful. They are committed to doing what's right for all of us.
Yeah, I think that's great.
And I think what's so exciting to me is that's kind of the root of philanthropy. Yeah. When you look at philanthropy, again, it's the Greek word for the love of humankind. And what I'm seeing now more and more is people are going away, left brain thinking has been so powerful in bringing all this technology to this world. But if that's all that lives, so often in that left brain thinking, we get caught up in cycles of fear. And we can't, our left brain thinking can't get us out of those traps. Yeah. We get caught in context of like, we're in 3rd class or 5th class, and we're trying to get 1st class, and we're on a boat, and that boat is the Titanic. That boat is going down. Yeah. Yeah. So this concept of these contexts that we find ourselves in are not serving us. And one of the things I would say is that people are now beginning to look up and say, we don't have to be in this context of these binary outcomes. It's, zero-sum games. You win, I lose. I have to dominate, you are the person that's dominated. People are now raising to a higher level of thinking deeply about their commitment to kind of, I think, the benefit of all. When we look at philanthropy, love of humankind, that people are beginning to think about that. And I'm just seeing it in very strange and wild ways. And all the entrepreneurs I'm meeting, people who are not entrepreneurs, this is inside and outside of Silicon Valley. So I just want to leave you with that. I was at a dinner last night that was hosted by a good friend of mine, Govind, at the Omidyar Network.
Here in Palo Alto?
This was in San Francisco. And I had 3 meetings before that. And in each single one of those meetings, that we were talking about technology, but we were talking about a bigger force. We were talking about the force of people's commitment to their higher and best selves, to something knowing beyond the kind of the logical mind or the kind of the rational mind. And in that, I think you're opening this incredible possibility for us at this moment when things are so uncertain, things are growing so quickly, we have such a wide dispersion of outcomes, our thinking mind can't get through it. We can't understand. Humans cannot understand
I think the content,
exponential growth.
I think you're right on. I think I've been predicting a hippie revolution in tech, meaning love, the tech love.
Yeah.
The mindset is, the narrative is it's all negative.
Yes.
I mean, if you're too optimistic, then you become a fanboy. Like, what's wrong with that? I like good things. I love Amazon. People call me an Amazon fanboy. They're a great product. I like Google too, but like, there's no positive vibes. Tech for good. It doesn't have to be philanthropy.
No, not at all. And again, I think this is when we take the roots of things, like when we look at Homo sapiens, what are kind of our highest and best manifestations? It's when we're out of fear and we're giving. We're giving back, we're contributing, we're in community. Like I ask people oftentimes, like, when in your life do you feel the most joy? When in your life do you feel the most at peace, the wisest? And then I ask them, what color do you see? This is a non-logical question. Yeah. And oftentimes that simple question can push people into a place which is away from fear into hope and possibility, into curiosity. Curiosity is such a powerful force.
I always see the CUBE blue because I've seen the logo so many times. I'm only kidding. Elliott, great to have you on. Thanks so much for spending the time as guest host.
Yes.
Love the shared vision. I think as everyone looks at their world, they're going to be building and making money. By the way, money making is good. You're for it. Tech, money, and impact.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming on episode 95 on the CUBE Pod.
Yes, and I would just say thank you for taking the incredible, courageous leaps that you've taken. Yeah. You've been at the cutting edge of innovation, and you've been right there, even ahead of it, when a lot of people have been looking in other. They've been behind the puck. You're going to where the puck is, and that's where you've done at theCUBE, and that's their reputation. And
Dave, watch out!
I know, watch out! Watch out!
Dave and
I'm not going to take over Dave's position.
It's the whole team. It's the team effort. Dave and I have really been, we grind it out. But what's happening is that we had the CUBE Global's happening. That's what's happening with the CUBE. We never would have thought about that. You go back to 2015, you thought we'd be doing what we do. Pandemic hits, things change, people come together. It's all good.
And I kind of call this as kind of these moments of kind of magic, serendipity, things that you can't explain that actually come together in beautiful ways. So I think if you set the right foundation with the right intention, the world comes to you.
Okay, that's the CUBE Pod. Without Dave, but Elliott filled in. Thank you so much. Again, have a great weekend. Thanks for watching and listening.
Right there.